Hello, students. I'm walking you through the process that I used in order to create my paragraph for my FlipGrid video. So the first thing that I did was I went to the link that's in the Canvas assignment page, and I started to look through these character traits. In the graphic organizer that I'll show you next, they are broken into categories, and so I wanted to build my thinking based on those categories. So I read through this list and found the ones that best connected with who I am as a person, and I also evaluated and eliminated the ones that I don't think are me. The entire time that I did that, I was thinking about my life experiences and some of the events and moments that I responded to based on just living my life and the experiences that I've had. So, like I said, first thing I did is I went through this list that you see in front of you, and I chose and select ones that I felt like best defined, described, and I could possibly explain in further detail if somebody were to ask me about that. So that was my first step. My second step was to click on the planning document that's included in the assignment description in the assignment in the module. So you'll see that mine is already filled out. Yours will be empty and blank. Like I said before, I went through that list and I started to chart those into each one of these categories. As I charted them, there really wasn't a sequence or a process that I used. Instead, I wanted to make sure that they were true. And again, I would be able to explain those in further detail if someone were to ask me. So that was my qualification for that process. Do I have a moment in time or a life experience that I would be able to connect to that and explain further if somebody were to ask me about it? So once I have that list, I went back to that list and found one item from any one of the categories that I wanted to define based on my life experiences. In order to select this one, I chose the one that I think best defines the biggest part of who I am. And you'll see I chose the word humorous. And then I thought about my life experiences and I reflected back to come up with my own definition. How is it that I know that? And how is it that I've experienced that over the course of time in my life? So, for example, you might use athletic. And then your definition would come from having played on numerous sports teams. Maybe you play on a club team. Maybe you chose a word from the list of intelligent. And then you have an experience of maybe when you won an award at school. And so that would be how you define your definition. So I do want this one to start with the word to because it could be, I want it to be a verb or an adverb or an adjective. And so as you select from that list, go ahead and keep that in mind. Again, the question is how would you define this based on your life experiences? My third and fourth step was to use the template that was in front of me. Also, it's in the assignment description page, but it's also embedded into your graphic organizer in this process. So what I did is I went through back and forth and wrote the paragraph. So I used the explain and describe template and I filled in the blanks as I went. I used the resources that I already listed and charted up here and put them into sentence format. So my first one, I'm best described as an introvert. The way that I came up with that was I had to find a big idea. My big idea was probably the biggest aspect that I think describes me that you need to know about. So you may choose to have that be part of your process as well. Uh, and then from there, I had to come up with a lot of inferences. My next sentence was an inference. To define introverted means that it's necessary to understand my values, morals, and beliefs. I got that from up here in this column because I felt as though, or I believed as though this column was the most important aspect about me. So you'll have to make a decision and evaluate which one of these categories is the most important in order for someone to really understand who you are. Once I continue with the template, I began to fill in the blank and I read through the sentence before and then I filled in the blank. So for example, I'm known for being blank, blank, and blank. So those three adjectives came from, again, that list that I chose as the most important list about me. So notice how in your mind you're creating a hierarchy. You're creating a process so that your reader can establish what's the most important, what's the second important, and then what's the last important. That's how this paragraph should be sequenced when you use the template. So lastly, as you begin to go through this process, you'll notice on the template that there is a section that's the next section that will explain and describe. This will be where you pull in those life experiences in order to impact your reader and let them connect to what you're writing. The last part is making use of that definition that you wrote up here in your planning experience creates the entire paragraph. So you'll notice that I've copied and pasted this into the directions for the assignment. Feel free to use it. You'll notice that in the example, I will bold what is the template in order for you to copy and paste into your own process. Use as many learning tools as you would like, and then your next step will be to read this paragraph into your FlipGrid.